He was just an old man with a faded cap, leaning on a cane, standing quietly at the edge of the firing range. Can you picture him there, all alone? His boots were dusty, his jacket too big, swallowing his thin frame, and his hands trembled when he signed the waiver. Did you see that shake, that hint of frailty? The younger guys laughed, nudged each other, and whispered loud enough for him to hear, should we call the paramedics now or after he drops the rifle? One of them even offered him a chair, not out of kindness, oh no, but pure mockery. No one knew his name. No one cared, or did they? They just watched, smirking as he slowly walked to the lane, picked up a rifle, and adjusted the sights with fingers that, wait for it, no longer shook. What happened in the next 10 seconds silenced the entire range. Can you feel the shock rippling through the air? Welcome to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories. Here, tales of courage and kindness pierce through the shadows, illuminating the raw, beating heart of humanity. Doesn't that just grab you? Are you ready to dive into what really happened that day? Trust me, this is a story that'll grip your soul and linger long after the last echo fades. He arrived just after opening. Imagine the scene. The sun was barely up, the asphalt of the range still slick with dew, glistening like it held secrets, and the parking lot mostly empty. Where was everyone else? His pickup truck looked like it hadn't seen a wash in a decade, matte green with rust creeping under the doors, duct tape stretched across one of the rearview mirrors. But it started without coughing, reliable, and he drove it slow, like someone who no longer had a reason to rush. He parked in the farthest corner away from the other vehicles. Why so far? Was he hiding something? When he stepped out, it was clear this wasn't just some Sunday hobby for him. Oh no. His walk was deliberate, not slow because he was weak, slow because he had learned somewhere along the line that rushing gets you killed. Can you feel the weight of that lesson in every step? The range staff didn't notice him at first, too busy, right? They were prepping targets, laughing over coffee, teasing one of the younger instructors who'd shown up late again, typical morning chaos. But one of them glanced up when the old man entered the office and signed the waiver without saying a word. He was polite, nodded, paid in cash, no small talk, no explanation. Why so quiet? His driver's license was old, creased from years in the same wallet. Can you see it, worn and faded? His name was William, just William, no last name legible anymore. No one bothered to ask for more. Did they even care? He carried a simple duffel bag, canvas, military issue from a different era. It seems worn thin and its zipper grease smooth from decades of use. He didn't carry it over his shoulder, oh no. He held it low like he was still on patrol, minimizing his profile, one hand on the strap, the other tucked deep into his jacket. Doesn't that scream soldier? The range instructor, a former Marine named Jace, noticed the way he moved, low to the ground, always aware, always watching, but didn't think much of it. Plenty of old-timers came through, some with stories, most just looking to remember something, right? He asked for lane 7, no one else had claimed it yet. It was the farthest lane, the quietest, near the berm where the range ended and the hills began. From there, he could see the whole setup. He liked that, didn't he? Jace walked him over and unlocked the cage. The old man gave a small nod of thanks and stood there for a moment, just looking out. What was he seeing? Behind him, the younger group started to arrive, loud, fresh out of some weekend tactical training camp. New rifles, expensive scopes, combat beards, body armor with American flags they hadn't earned. They came to shoot, but mostly to impress each other, didn't they? They saw the old man and smirked. Here we go. One of them said something about Grandpa Rambo under his breath. Can you hear the sneer? The others chuckled. William didn't react, not a twitch. He was already unpacking his gear, a pair of shooting gloves worn thin, an old ball cap with the logo of a unit long since disbanded, and a weapon wrapped in an oil-stained cloth. When he unwrapped it, Jace leaned in just a little. Wait till you hear this. It was a classic M21 Vietnam-era sniper rifle, wood-stocked, iron-sighted with modifications you didn't buy at any store. Custom barrel, polished bolt, suppressor port, everything maintained like it had just come off the line. Can you believe the care in that? The young guys didn't recognize it, no surprise there. One of them asked if it was a hunting rifle, seriously. Another snorted, he probably hunted Hitler with that thing. More laughter, oh, how clever they thought they were. The old man never looked up, not once. He inspected the barrel, ran a cloth down it, clicked the bolt twice, then gently loaded a magazine, every move precise, like a ritual. Jace stood nearby, arms crossed, pretending not to listen, but watching everything, wasn't he? There was something off about this guy, not dangerous, just quiet in a way that made noise seem inappropriate around him. Can you feel that stillness? The young men, 5 of them total, started showing off. Here they go. One had a brand new AR with a digital scope, fancy, huh? Another was timing his reloads with a smartwatch. Look at me. They were cocky, but not cruel, not yet. But when William stepped into position, took a deep breath, and shouldered his rifle, the joke started again. Oh, here it comes. He going to fall over from the recoil? Hope someone's got 911 on speed dial. Yo, can he even see the targets without a walker? Still, he didn't respond, didn't flinch. How does he stay so calm? He adjusted the scope, a vintage Redfield, no electronics, and then paused, not to hesitate, but to feel the air, the wind, the terrain, the same way he used to, back when the silence around him meant life or death. Can you imagine that focus? It had been years since he last fired in public, decades, even. Not since the funeral, not since the folded flag was handed to him by a young officer who couldn't even look him in the eye. Doesn't that break your heart? He didn't come today to prove anything, or did he? He came because something inside him had shifted, a sense that maybe he was disappearing, becoming invisible. No one called. No one visited. His name meant nothing in the town anymore. The medals sat in a drawer, forgotten. The letters from old commanders had yellowed, lost to time. The war stories had stopped being told. And maybe that was how it was supposed to be, maybe men like him were meant to fade away quietly, right? But something had changed last night. Oh, what a moment. He had found the rifle, cleaned it, held it for the first time in years. And the moment he felt its weight again, not just in his hands, but in his chest, he knew he wasn't gone yet, no way. The first few shots from the younger shooters echoed across the range, loud, fast, full of confidence. Their paper targets fluttered with holes, they shouted over each other's bursts of fire, comparing groupings, mocking each missed shot like kids at an arcade. Were they even serious? They weren't practicing, they were performing for each other, for themselves, and maybe just a little for the quiet old man standing at lane 7. Did they even know he was watching? William hadn't fired a single round yet, not one. He remained motionless, eye behind the scope, breathing steady, as if the world around him didn't matter, but it did, didn't it? He could feel the energy in the air, he knew that kind of cocky noise. He'd seen it on the faces of rookies shipped out fresh, thinking they'd come back legends before they'd ever seen blood. Doesn't that hit close to home? One of the young men, tall, with mirrored sunglasses and a smug grin, walked over to William's lane, uninvited. Oh, here we go. Hey, sir, he said, drawing out the word like a joke. Can you hear the condescension? You need help sighting that relic in? William didn't move, didn't answer, stone cold. The man leaned closer. You know this isn't a museum, right? His friends behind him snickered, jerks. Jace, watching from the edge of the office, stiffened but said nothing. He'd seen these types before, hadn't he? Not bad people, just full of themselves, clueless. And William? Well, he didn't seem to mind, but did he? William's grip tightened slightly, not out of anger, but control. He'd spent a lifetime learning to breathe through noise, to see through arrogance. Can you feel that strength? He adjusted the windage knob without breaking his gaze through the scope. The guy finally walked off, shaking his head, muttering something under his breath about wasted lanes. Good riddance. A few more minutes passed. The younger group moved down to check their targets, bragging loudly. here they go again. William stayed still, 1 breath, 2, 3, then he finally exhaled. Ed and pulled the bolt back, smooth, deliberate, and loaded his first round. He didn't fire, not yet. Why the wait? The young men came back, their voices louder now. Ugh, really? One of them, the youngest, started recording a video on his phone. He turned it toward the others, narrating in a mockumentary voice. Day 3 at the geriatric sniper range. Subject appears to be assembling his rifle since the Vietnam War ended. More laughter. Oh, how original. $10 says he misses the whole board, said one of them. I say he drops the gun before he fires. The youngest zoomed in with his phone. Let's get this on tape. Might go viral. Call of Duty, Retirement Edition. Seriously, guys? William didn't look at them, but he heard it all, every word. He had been called worse, much worse, in languages the boys couldn't pronounce. He had been spat on, cursed, forgotten, but this was different, not hatred, just ignorance, and in a strange way, that cut deeper because it meant they truly didn't see him, not a threat, not a soldier, just a shadow. Doesn't that ache? Still, he said nothing. He raised the rifle, looked through the scope again, adjusted for distance. The wind had shifted, he recalibrated, barely moving, then, at last, he took the shot, bam. The sound wasn't loud, not like the others, suppressed, crisp, controlled. The range staff barely heard it, the boys didn't even look up, but Jace, though, he turned because he recognized that sound, a professional shot, measured, centered. Did you catch that? William cycled the bolt, ejected the shell cleanly, loaded another, second shot, same calm rhythm, then a third and a fourth, each one like a heartbeat, precise, disciplined, silent in their deadliness. Can you hear it? By the fifth, one of the boys turned. He's actually firing. The youngest checked his camera. Yeah, I think so, but like slow motion or something. Another burst of laughter. At that moment, William stepped back from the rifle, pulled off his gloves, took out a small cloth from his pocket and wiped the stock gently like it was an old friend. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Why should he? Jace walked to the end of the range and checked the targets. He stared at lane 7 for a while, long enough that the others started to wonder. Then he waved them over, wordless. Curiosity got the better of them. They jogged up the range, joking as they went. Let me guess, he hit the dirt. Maybe he hit the pole behind the target board. But when they got there, they stopped talking. Oh, the silence. The target was marked, not randomly, not chaotically. 10 clean holes, all within the center ring, 2 of them touching the bullseye dead on, the others surrounding it so tightly they could have been punched by the same fist. Can you see it? One of the boys let out a breath. Wait, how many shots did he fire? Jace didn't answer. He didn't have to. The holes spoke for themselves. The youngest checked his video footage. No way, he whispered. No freaking way. He replayed the clip, zoomed in, counted 10 rounds, 10 seconds. One of the older shooters nearby walked over and looked. He whistled. You boys ever heard of Carlos Hathcock? They shook their heads. Of course not, the man muttered. You ever heard of respect? They didn't reply. Did they even know how? Jace turned back toward the firing line, but William was already packing up, rifle cleaned, gloves folded, bag zipped. He moved like someone who hadn't come here for praise, only for silence. The group returned to the benches, quieter now. The laughter had died, the jokes faded into awkward glances. One of them looked like he wanted to say something but didn't know how. Can you feel the shift? William reached the counter to sign out. Jace walked over, voice low. You mind if I ask where you served? William didn't answer at first. He simply stared at the range through the window. Then he said, places that don't exist anymore, and he left. No fanfare, no salute, just gone. Who was he, really? No salute, no speech, just pure, heavy silence. The kind that crashes down like a wave after an ambush. When the dust finally settles, the adrenaline drains away, and you're left staring into the raw truth of who you are. Can you even picture that kind of stillness? It's not calm, it's a haunting echo of battles past. William didn't look back as he crossed the parking lot, his boots crunching softly on the gravel, each step steady, deliberate, like a man who's carried more than anyone could guess. The sun climbed high, throwing stark, hard shadows across the pavement. And behind him? The range was swallowed in a silence so thick it felt like fog, not the kind that fades with a new day, but the kind that clings when something profound is realized too late. Have you ever felt a moment like that slip through your fingers? He opened his truck door with that same quiet care, placing his bag gently on the passenger seat, like it held something sacred, and sat still for a few seconds. No sigh, no big exhale, just a stillness that cuts deep. The kind forged from years of waiting, years of holding your breath, even when the world around you seems peaceful. But peace? It never lasts, does it? Inside the range office, Jay stood frozen, his eyes glued to the sign-in sheet William had scribbled on earlier. Something about that shaky handwriting, that signature, tugged at him hard. He snatched it up, squinting at the faint, smudged ink, William T. R. The last name blurred, like a mystery begging to be unraveled. And then, wham, it hit him, not all at once, but in jagged little pieces. That old rifle, the way William stood, the rhythm of his shots, that tight grouping, and those initials, could it really be? Jay spun to the wall of honor, a cluttered corkboard plastered with photos of veterans who'd graced the range over decades. Some grinned with medals pinned to their chests, others stared blankly. Tucked near the bottom, hidden under newer shots, he found it, a black and white photo, edges yellowed by time. A younger man in fatigues, kneeling in the dirt, gripping that same M21. No smile, just eyes that carried a lifetime of weight. The caption? William T. Rainsford, SEAL Sniper, retired. Operation Ivory Coast, Laos, Cambodia. Decorated with the Silver Star and Navy Cross. Confirmed 112. Jay stumbled back, like the air had been sucked out of him. He faced the group still lingering near Lane 7, their smug grins torched by a raw, cold shame. You guys have any clue who that man was? He demanded, voice low but steady as steel. Silence. He's why half the tricks you're trying to pull even exist. He trained the guys who trained your instructors. He survived missions so secret they're still locked away. That shot grouping. He nailed it in a jungle, under fire, in pouring rain, with malaria eating at him. The youngest gulped, his phone trembling in his hand. Rainsford? That's William Rainsford. Jace nodded, eyes burning. You mocked a living legend. No one budged. An older guy, the one who'd name-dropped Hathcock earlier, crossed his arms, voice gruff. You boys ought to be ashamed. He didn't just hit targets, he saved lives, freed POWs, kept teams alive that never hit the headlines. A heavy pause hung in the air before the first kid slunk out, head bowed. The rest trailed behind, no laughs, no strut, just a silence that screamed regret. Jay stepped outside just as the old truck rumbled away. He raised a hand, did William even see? The old man didn't wave, just drove slow, the sun blazing at his back. That night, the video blew up, not how those boys planned. The youngest had slapped it online with a cheesy title, Old Man at the Range Shocks Everyone. In hours, it racked up hundreds of thousands of views. But the shooting? That wasn't what hooked people, it was the comments. I served with him. He's why I made it home, one read. Another, Rainsford trained my dad. Never missed, not once. Then came the flood, photos, declassified papers, letters, medals, a tidal wave of memory from people who hadn't forgotten. By dawn, news crews were hounding the range. Jace gave them nothing, just stood at Lane 7, staring at that target, holes clustered like stars in a forgotten sky. William didn't open his door that evening when knuckles rapped, but he peeked through the window. 3 young men, those same boys from the range, stood awkwardly on his porch, rifles dangling at their sides. They didn't knock twice. Instead, they left something precious, a note and a small metal plaque, etched with words that hit like a punch, to William T. Rainsford, you taught us more in 10 seconds than we learned in 10 years. Can you feel the respect in that? The quiet awe. He read it, letting it soak in, then gazed out at his tiny lawn where the flag still flew, faded, sure, but proud as ever. No tears, William didn't do tears, but something cracked open inside. For the first time in years, he felt seen, not a dusty old relic, not a stranger, but the warrior he'd always been. Doesn't that just grab you by the heart? The days after drifted by, quiet as a held breath. William didn't flip on the TV, didn't scroll his phone, didn't Google himself. He just sat with it, the silence, the weight, the shift stirring deep within. Not painful, but like something buried finally breaking free. He hadn't gone to the range for glory, he'd gone because something inside was fading, and maybe one last shot could anchor it. But the world wouldn't stay quiet. A letter arrived, Navy SEAL stamped bold on the envelope, a voice from the past roaring back. Inside, steady, dignified script, you saved my life in Cambodia, 1972. I never thanked you, can you believe that? I saw the video, and now I'm damn sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. With all the respect in the world, Admiral Peter Caldwell. Wow, imagine that landing in your mailbox after decades. Tucked inside was an invite, a private ceremony for men whose tales are whispered, not shouted. William stared at it for days, left it on the table, until one morning he folded it, slipped it into his coat, and fired up the truck. The road felt like an old friend, not the asphalt, but the pull in his gut. The ceremony wasn't flashy, just right. An old hangar on a retired base, no glitz, no reporters, no cameras, just folding chairs, flags, and faces carved with memory. Men with straight spines and weathered skin, some in crisp uniforms, others in faded jackets, all sharing that silent weight. Isn't that more real than any spotlight? When William walked in, no introductions needed, they stood, one by one, a quiet salute of respect. Admiral Caldwell met him with a firm handshake and a look that said everything. You trained the men who trained me, he said. We thought you were gone, or wanted to be. William didn't reply, just held his gaze, words weren't needed. Then they called his name, clear, steady, like a truth unveiled. He stepped up, and they handed him a plaque. Beneath his name, 4 words carved deep, precision, honor, silence, legacy. Don't those hit you square in the chest? As the crowd faded, a young guy, barely 20, uniform crisp, hands shaky, approached, offering a black notebook. Pages spilled with notes, range math, breathing tips, quotes on grit. On the first page, bold as day, everything I am, I owe to someone I never understood until I saw him shoot. Feel that gratitude? William closed it gently, gave the kid a nod, no sermon, just a spark passed on. That night, he stood on his porch, lights off, hands gripping the rail, stars overhead. The silence didn't feel empty anymore, it felt alive. 2 days later, he returned to the range, no rifle, just a folded flag and a steady stride. At Lane 7, he saw it, a plaque bolted above the bench, the Rainsford line. Below, in smaller letters, real shooters don't boast. They remember. Chills, right? Jace nodded, no words, just respect. The same young crew was there, training now, serious. One asked to shake his hand, William nodded. Another asked if he'd teach, he didn't answer, but stayed, watching, tweaking a stance here, pointing at the wind flag there. He wasn't a ghost anymore, he was a standard. And he felt at peace. William hated goodbyes, always had. They lived in the silences between men who might not meet again. But sitting on that worn bench by Lane 7, breeze rustling the grass, he knew this chapter was closing, not because he was done, but because he'd been heard. A lone recruit, the kid who'd laughed once, trained nearby, sharper now, honest. William watched, silent. His presence was enough. He pulled a letter from his jacket, words scratched out when sleep wouldn't come. A man doesn't crave fame, just remembrance. Not medals, not cheers, just proof we mattered, that we shaped something lasting. I wasn't a hero, I did my job. Time doesn't care what you won, it asks what you left. If you read this, maybe you still remember. He tucked it away and stood. Soon, an article popped online, no fanfare, just 10 shots, 10 seconds, a lifetime. It spread quietly among vets, pinned up in VFW halls. They knew who it was. Letters trickled in, a kid from Texas, a woman from Ohio, a mechanic who owed him a goodbye. It wasn't noise, it was memory. One evening, William returned to Lane 7, pinned a flag above the bench, and sat, not to shoot, just to be. Young shooters watched, adjusting their aim in reverence. He wasn't a shadow, he was the measure. And as long as one kid steadies his breath and learns humility, William Rainsford will live on. Isn't that the legacy we all chase? The story of William Rainsford hits me like a freight train, raw, real, and unrelenting. It's not just a tale of a veteran's hidden skill, it's a mirror held up to how we live, how we judge, and how we fail. I'm furious, honestly, at how society treats its elders and veterans, like they're expired goods, shoved aside until they prove they've still got something left. Those young shooters mocking William, calling him Grandpa Rambo. That's us. We smirk at wrinkled hands and slow steps, blind to the fire that might still burn beneath. And when that silence fell after his shots, perfect, deadly, humbling, it broke my heart. Not because he showed them up, but because he shouldn't have had to. I believe we're starving for a reckoning in how we see age and legacy. Respect isn't a trophy you hand out for trending on TikTok, it's a debt we owe to those who've carved paths we'll never fully grasp. William's life, 112 confirmed kills, secrets locked in classified files, wasn't loud, but it roared in its quiet strength. We've got to stop assuming relevance fades with youth. Our veterans, our grandparents, they're not museum pieces. They're living histories, and we're fools to let them gather dust. I'm pleading for a shift, look at the old man in worn boots with wonder, not pity. Ask his story, not his age. Because the truth is, some of the fiercest souls walk among us unnoticed, and I'm sick of watching them fade into silence when they deserve to be heard. William didn't need applause, he needed us to see him. Let's start seeing. Subscribe to Heartfelt Gratitude Stories, where justice is honored, kindness is remembered, and no act of quiet heroism is ever lost, because how could we let it fade?